So tomorrow I want to make refried black beans. That means today I need to soak beans. So I have a pound of black beans, dry. I have 4 cups of water. Really, I need enough to just cover them. And then I'm going to use a half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to stir that together, and then we're going to leave them sit for 24 hours. Then we'll come back and make refried black beans. So last night I soaked our black beans, and this afternoon anyway, I'm going to make our refried beans. Side note, refried beans does not mean fried twice. It actually means beans that are cooked and then fried. So the first thing we need to do is cook them. I have a large non-stick pot on medium heat. It's warming up that I'm going to add olive oil to. And then that's 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then I have a teaspoon of cumin that I'm going to add to it. And when this starts sizzling, we're going to add our onions, which we have 1.5 cups of. I'm going to break up the cumin too. It got a little clumped in there. So if you notice, it's sizzling up. We're going to add our onion. These need to cook for about 5 minutes or until they become translucent. This is 1 onion that I just chopped up in my food processor. So we need to let these sit and cook for about 5 minutes, and then we will come back and add our garlic. So our onions have been cooking for about 5 minutes. They're nice and translucent, cooked all the way through. Now we're going to add a teaspoon of minced garlic. Let that cook for about a minute, just until you can smell the garlic. Now if you're my husband, he can already smell the garlic, so he's going, what are we waiting for? You need the aroma of garlic in the air. Now we're going to add our beans. I drained them first. I'm going to stir this together and then add our 2 quarts of water. This is fresh water. Not the same water that they were in last night. So 2 quarts or 8 cups. And then we're going to bring this to a boil. So we're going to bring this whole pot to a boil, then reduce it to a simmer and let it sit, simmering for 2 hours to cook the beans the rest of the way. But first, it has to come to a boil. Oh, and before I forget, we have another 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So this should take about 5 minutes for it to come to a boil, and then we'll reduce it to level 2 on my stove to let it simmer. So our beans are at a rolling boil. I'm going to reduce this to a 2 on mine, which is a medium low. Fully low is 1 and below. I'm going to let it just simmer, which is just a little bit of the bubbles coming up. We're going to cover it, not fully, just like halfway. There we go. And let it sit for the next 2 hours. So our beans have been simmering for about 2 hours. Our next step is to put in our fresh cilantro. So all I do is take the itty bitty stems. Those are okay to cut in and put, but these thick ones that are the base of the cilantro, I throw away. So I'm going to take these pieces and cut them. Until we get to a half a cup of cilantro. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This is going to cook down inside the beans for another 30 minutes. So you don't need perfectly, julienned pieces. Just need it cut small enough that it'll cook and that you get the flavor of the cilantro imparted into the beans. Like that. And that's it. Now we're going to add that to our beans and let it cook for another 30 minutes. So we're going to take our fresh cilantro that we just chopped up, pour it right in. I'm going to stir it up, and then we're going to let this cook for another 30 minutes. Lid halfway on still. 30 minutes. So our beans have been cooking with the cilantro for the last 30 minutes. And now we're going to do the refried part of the refried beans. So I have my skillet heating. I'm going to heat up 2 more tablespoons of olive oil. I have a teaspoon of cumin. And I have 2 teaspoons of chili powder. Now, if you would like more garlic and onion flavor, you can add more garlic and onions right now. My family is not a fan, so I don't use the second garlic and onions. But if you wanted, I would do a teaspoon of minced garlic and a cup and a half, of diced onions. We're going to get that to heat up, and then we're just going to add the beans to it and mash them in the pan. So our spices are sizzling. So now all I'm going to do is take the beans and add them in here. And you want the beans with the liquid, all of it. And then I'm going to take my handy dandy potato masher and just mash beans in the pan while they're cooking. And if you like really smushed beans, like not a whole bean in sight, you can do this with an immersion blender, which I've done. I've done it where I put them all in the food processor to get that really smooth bean. But sometimes, like now, I like it a little rustic, so I'm just going to mash by hand and stir to make sure that I get all those spices that we just heated up mixed in. And this process will take about 3 minutes, and then we'll be completely done. One more note. So if you like your beans a little soupier, you can add more water at this point. If you like them a little thicker, leave them cooking a little longer to cook that water and liquid out. It all really depends on what you like as a consistency. With my refried beans, I like a little of the whole bean and a lot of smashed. So now that they're at about the consistency I like, we're going to let these cook on the stove for 3 more minutes and then we're done. Alright, our beans have been cooking for the last 3 minutes and now they're done.